presentation, it was horrible. It was awful. I mean, I was sweating. I was so far out of my comfort zone. It was terrible. I'll date myself and I'll say that I was holding one of those clickers to advance the slides, but it was tethered to a machine that had a carousel of slides. That's how long ago this was. Some of you have no idea what I'm talking about, but look it up, right? And so there I was clicking, but I got kind of pumped up to do the presentation. I mean, I'd been to a Tony Robbins seminar. I'm ready to be dynamic on stage, right? And so here I was standing on the cord as I gestured, and I pulled the cord out of my hand. Right? So I kind of reached down and got it, and went a little further, and I gestured again. I was doing it again, and I dropped it again. The people in the front, now they're like ducking. I didn't realize at first. You see, when I did this, sweat was coming off my hand. Right? This was a disaster. But afterward, I said, you know, I wasn't very good. I'll bet some people in the audience said I could do that better, and that was good, right? That they said that, you know, right? And so I said I could get better at this, and that was good. So I just got better from the experience. I did it over and I did it over again. Habits, they're critical. I mean, there's so many quotes about habits. We are what we repeatedly do. The harder you work, the harder it is to surrender, etc., right? If you begin to study what habits are all about, and how they're going to affect you and impact your life, it'll change your life. I mean, one after another, they zero in that habits are the critical piece to the equation. Doing things consistently over time. Does that make sense to you? Right. Okay. There's another three things. Now you might, if you're taking notes, three things, right? Number 1, 2, 3, and then we'll fill in the first one. First one is, it's a numbers game. Now I don't want to make this sound cold. I don't want to make it sound like, well, you just take it, you throw against the wall and see what sticks. No, that's not how it is. But it is a numbers game. In the beginning, you've just got to go through the numbers till you find your people. What are you doing? You're sorting and sifting through the numbers. Then it gets to number 2, because once you know it's the numbers game, now you're moving forward. Then you go to number 2. It's a numbers game. And when you've recruited for a little while, now you know that you've got to recruit some more. And just like I did when I was coaching basketball, if I didn't have the results I wanted on the court, I needed to become a better recruiter, find better people, offer it to more people, over and over. And then number 3, this one's really important, it's a numbers game. And so those are really critical to remember because it'll change your attitude about this. And if you don't like the progress you're making, you've got to get better at advancing your business with numbers, right? It's a numbers game. Okay. Now, let's talk about how do you start achieving goals. Now, we're going to be talking a little more in detail later on goal setting, but it's an area that I have really focused on in the last year. Last July, for the Success Summit, I was given the topic on stage of talking about goal setting. And it just gave me kind of a new life when it came to goal setting. I said, I got to really invest in this. I mean, I've really got to change in this area. I got to get better in this area. And so I began to study what had been the book of the month last year. It was called The One Thing. That was one of our System 7 books of the month. If there's a single book you might read maybe in the new year for you, I don't know if this, maybe you ought to be the one, right? The One Thing. It's a powerful book. And here's what he says. What's the one thing that I can do such that by doing it, everything else will be easier or unnecessary? You've all heard of the 80-20 rule, I would hope. It's called the Pareto principle. It says that 80% of what you do will only give you 20% of the results. 20% of what you do gives you 80% of your results. So you got to focus on the 80. No, you got to focus on the 20, right? So that's what you want. You focus on the 20. But he goes a little farther. He says, okay, if you got that 20%, in that 20%, 80% of it will only give you 20% of your results. 20% will give you 80% of your results. So you take it down to here. Now you take it down to here. Then what does he say? Okay, you've got it down to a few things, but even in those few things, 20% will make all the difference. So zero in on those, and eventually you get to the one thing. And there's a formula, right? Simple concepts applied consistently. Now here are some tips, right? You have to be willing to say no. You got to know when to say no. You've got a time block in your schedule. Otherwise, the day goes by and you've been busy. And you've got to prioritize. These are critical components in your habits. If you get really good at these habits, the most amazing things will happen. There's quote after quote after quote by top business leaders recognized throughout the world. People like Steve Jobs, Peter Drucker, Warren Buffett, some of the wealthiest people who have ever been on the planet. And they talk about saying no more often. Jim Rohn phrased it this way. He said, don't let your mouth overload your back. In other words, say yes, say yes, say yes. Now you got so much stuff weighing you down, you can't do what you're supposed to do. Who's guilty of saying yes too easily, too often, and you feel yourself weighed down by it? All right, we're going to do a simple exercise now. I want you to get good at this. On the count of 3, I just want you to shout no. Ready? 1, 2, 3.
No!
See, if you just did that a few more times a day, it'd be amazing. Just amazing what you could accomplish. How many know that that's really a true statement? Right? So get better at saying no. Unload your back. Do the things that you ought to do. The zeroed in, really important things. Oh, but I'm busy. Susan P. Wilson wrote a book called Goal Setting. It jumped out at me years ago. She says the hardest thing in the world is to be effective, but the easiest thing in the world is to be busy. Don't we find ourselves really finding it easy to be busy, but hard to be effective in the course of the day? And the truth is, that's gotten even harder. It's gotten a lot harder because of distractions and because of procrastination. You know, my brother for years has done this little skit where he procrastinates and he'll do anything rather than pick up the phone and make a phone call. He would rather read. He would rather clean the desk. He would rather help in the kitchen, which he doesn't do. Right? He'd rather do anything. He would rather balance the checkbook. I think all of us have some of that procrastination built into us. Have you ever experienced it? Let me just ask, what is your favorite form of procrastination? Go ahead, just tell me. Shout it out. Facebook. Okay, you can relate? Okay. What? Cleaning. WeChat. Sleeping. Eating. How about walking the dog? Shopping. There we go. Everybody's got their favorites. Here's what I would ask you to put in your notes. Name 3 things that you know you need to get out of your life. They're procrastination vehicles for you. It scares me right now that Nu Skin is moving us in the direction of social media. It thrills me right now that Nu Skin is moving us in the direction of social media. Isn't that interesting? It thrills me. I'm excited for the opportunity. I'm scared for the distraction. Well, I've got to learn social media. I better get on here every day. Oh my gosh, there it is, 3 hours. Where did that go? Discipline and social media success. Does that make sense? Okay. Here's what your to-do list should look like. Take your to-dos and create a should-do list. It's got to be narrowed down. You can't do it all. What should you do? Why do you have to manage your distractions? Here's a quick video that'll show you why.
Really? It's time for a phone to save us from our phones. New Windows Phone, designed to get you in and out and back to life.
Sure, a phone to save you from your, yeah, right. You've got to save yourself from the distraction. You've got to manage that, and you've got to be on top of it. Don't you? I mean, come on. Digital distractions, it'll kill you. They're competing for your attention. You got to steer clear. What are your distractions? Oh, you're a great multitasker? I don't think so. Work harder on yourself than you do on your business, yourself. You've got to get better and better and better. Read more, listen more, do what you need to do in this area. There's this whole formula. Read the one thing. He'll walk you through this formula. And the bottom line to this, here's the Gary deritter morning. Review your goals. Your someday goals, as he talks about, all the way to today. What should I be doing? Connect them. Read, listen, watch. Quiet time. Review the day. Plan the day. Jim Rohn says, don't start the day until you've finished it. Does that make sense? Yeah. Don't start the day until you've finished it. Finished it in the plan and in your mind. And finally, you do it all. And here's really what I want to challenge you to do. Go bigger. You have the talent. You have the time. You can or can find the resources. Somebody else has already done it, just model them. Haven't you seen that already? This weekend you'll see more. And when you do, it's all about lifestyle and balance and living the dreams that you have for yourself and your family. Have a great day today, everybody. Thank you so much.